Hi everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talks. Welcome to the final episode of Coffee Talks. Hi, Instagram. I see you. I am right now bringing in my family from across the world. Let me know where you're coming in, where you're tuning in from. Let me know in the comments where you're coming in from. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna make sure that all the tech is working. I see Khalid is Isaac. You're from Paris. Welcome to Coffee Talks. Charlie's here. George. Hey, good to see you. Hi, Yitida. I've been well. For everybody that is tuning in, welcome to Coffee Talks. Welcome to the final episode of Coffee Talks with your host, Jova. My name is Jova. I am the founder and creator of The Artidote, and Anto Philip is here. Good to see you, Anto. Cheers, man. For everyone that is tuning in, let me know if you can hear the microphone properly. I want to make sure that the tech is working properly first. Welcome, Monique from Northern Indiana, Anusha from Nepal, Sherry from Dubai. Hi, good to see you. Sakshi, hi, greetings, all the way from Mumbai. Chandar, there's nothing to be said about. I'm actually super excited about what's to come. I have some news for you. This is the final episode. Thank you, George, for letting me know that the audio is good. Mike is working beautifully. Thank you, Anto. I love seeing people here from Bangalore. Shout out to Bangalore, my second home away from home. Okay, everybody, so welcome to Coffee Talks. This is number 17. We've spent the last 17 Sundays just chilling, vibing, feeling, breathing together. And speaking of which, as some of you know, it is our weekly ritual to begin Coffee Talks. What is happening here? To begin Coffee Talks with a with a breathing moment. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted with some of the screen elements here. But let's begin this episode by simply taking a moment to breathe. We're gonna do 10 conscious breaths, and after the 10 conscious breaths that we're gonna be taking together, we are going to just have a moment of silence. We're gonna share, if you haven't yet had a moment of silence, to just feel, to just be, to just maybe hear your heartbeat or hear the sounds around you. We are going to take one right after we take our 10 conscious breaths together. These next conscious breaths don't carry a structure, don't carry any count either. I just simply want us to take in 10 deep conscious breaths, as deeply as you can make them, and as honest and as true as you can have one. The way that it helps me come up with a conscious, deep, full breath is by inhaling through my nose and making sure that it goes all the way down to my belly and that it rests comfortably in my belly before I exhale through my mouth slowly. And so at the count of three, I would like us to take just 10 conscious breaths, and then we can begin, talking about whatever comes up. But that's the most important thing right now. So in 3, 2, 1, let's take one deep breath in and exhale. One more in and out. Inhale and release. Inhale the good stuff. release the stress. In with the good shit, out with the bullshit. Number 6 coming in and out. Deep breath in and out. Bring in the peace. Release the stress. Breathe in again and out. One last one. Take a deep breath in and slowly release and let it go. If you're feeling any tingling sensations in your hands, it's okay. Shake them a little bit. Shake out that excess energy. And whenever you're ready, just come back here with me. Come back here with us. We are experiencing Coffee Talks, episode 17, the final episode before we take a little break. How did that make you feel, by the way? Let me know in the comments. How are you feeling right now after taking 10 conscious breaths? You're feeling better, you're feeling calm, relaxed and easy. As we continue with this moment that we get to share together, I would like you to continue on your own. Just keep taking in those very slow conscious breaths. 10 conscious breaths 3 times a day is my life hack. One of my life hacks to come back into the present moment, to come back into peace, to come back into calm, to come back into this sense of just being here and not somewhere else. You know, our minds sometimes get stuck in the past, thinking about everything that has been, or sometimes they get stuck projecting into the future, thinking about the things that will come, or about the things that we imagine will come when we don't even know if they in fact will arrive. And so it's very important to bring in, that energy, bring in that energy through our breath, which is the easiest way of coming back into the present moment, of inhaling everything that is around us and at the same time exhaling everything that is coming in and just meeting the present with present eyes. It is so important in order for us to be here, to feel here, and to actually, experience that thing that we talk about when we talk about showing up. That's what it means to actually be here. So the other thing that I want to share with you, and I'm glad you asked. Somebody on Instagram just asked about another life hack. Here's another life hack for you. I'm full of life hacks today. We're actually gonna do this together. We tried this in the last episode of Coffee Talks to amazing results, and I want to try it again with you today because I think that if we had continued with more episodes of Coffee Talks, this would definitely be one of the staple, moments that we would always have. And this is called sharing a moment of silence. And a shared moment of silence is important because, especially when we jump online, especially when we jump on social media, it is an immediate, non-stop flow, cascade avalanche of information, sometimes educational, sometimes entertaining, sometimes it's just garbage. but nonetheless it's there. But it's just this avalanche of information where even if it's not making any sound, it's making our minds and it's making our thoughts feel crowded, feel full of so many different things. And even me jumping online, I resisted jumping online throughout last year, um, doing these sort of lives, because I noticed that in the middle of the global pandemic that we're all living through, surviving through, and in best case scenarios growing through, and in worst case scenarios simply making it day by day through, I noticed that one of the spaces where we would escape or try to distract ourselves from everything that is going on around us, which sometimes feels like it's too much, would be social media, would be spaces like this. And lo and behold, sometimes spaces like this are not the peaceful, quiet, nurturing, and reactivating and re-inspiring spaces that we wish for them to be. And I did not want to add to that noise that social media tends to generate. So I resisted going live. And now that I am doing these lives, and I've been doing them every weekend, I want us to share a moment of silence, just for us to feel what it feels like being together, sharing a moment, but sharing silence, not having the pressure to be anything or do anything, but simply be. You know, for me, when I come here online, I always feel the pressure of the camera is on. I need to be educational, I need to be entertaining, or I need to be inspiring, right? And I also want to give myself the opportunity to just be here with you without having to be any of those things, where I can just simply be, right? And I want to also allow you to experience what that feels like, where you can just be without having to be anything other than who you already are. And so we're going to take 1 minute of complete silence. I won't be saying anything. Nothing will be happening here on the channel. If you're here right now and you go through this 1 minute, there might be something special that you may feel or you may think about. And for the people that are going to join us during this next minute, they're going to be so confused. But nonetheless, we're going to have 1 minute of silence starting now. As you continue to experience your moment of silence, I want you to take a look around you. Notice the details that surround you. Notice the colors. Notice the light. Notice the textures. Smell the smells that may be around you. Hear the sounds. Feel the way this moment feels. Notice how the clothes feel on your skin. If you're joining me with a cup of coffee, feel the warmth of the cup. If you're joining me with a cup of anything else, have a drink, taste it. If you're experiencing a lag in the sound in Instagram, join me on Facebook and YouTube. Join me on Facebook and YouTube, on Instagram, since we are having technical issues. Instagram, join me on Facebook and YouTube. Go on the Orthodox Facebook account. The live is happening there. Or if you're on YouTube and you prefer YouTube, go on the Orthodox YouTube page, and I'll be there. Right now, I will be logging off Instagram. Give me 1 second. Instagram, we're having problems with the video and the audio, so join me on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll be there. Join me on Facebook and YouTube, okay? I'll be right there, because I'm closing off Instagram. Join me on Facebook and YouTube. I'll see you there. For everybody that is here, joining on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for sticking around. We always have some technical difficulties. Not always, but when they happen, they happen. And notice the way that I responded to this. Notice the way that I responded to having technical difficulties. I responded in a very calm, collected manner because I had taken those 10 breaths and I had taken that moment to just be and breathe. And I've noticed that whenever I give myself that opportunity to just simply be and breathe and ground myself, whenever there is an issue, whenever there is a problem, I don't respond in the reactive freak out mode of, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What am I going to do? What I'm going to do? There's going to be a problem. Like my body doesn't even register it as a danger or as something that is a problem. Instead, it's a sort of, oh, it's this awareness that there's something that needs to be fixed. And you, since your body's not wasting energy in that freak out mode, right, with the adrenaline rush, you have more energy to think of possible solutions to whatever issue you may be having. And so if you know ahead of time that you're going to have, for instance, a day in which it's going to require a lot of problem solving out of you, whether you are having exams, whether you are having important conversations with, you know, people around you in your relationships, find a moment to catch those 10 conscious breaths and to give yourself a moment of silence. Just a moment to simply be, and ground yourself in your breath. And the calmness and the grounding and the sense of peace that will come from that moment is something that within that moment you can actually think of what today may look like, what today may bring, and if there are some important conversations to be had, some important decisions to be made. um, it is in that moment of grounding yourself that you can actually create your boundaries, that you can actually make your decisions before you actually get to make those boundaries or those decisions. It's kind of like energetically mm, reminding your body of how you want to feel and how you want to behave and how you want to act before the moment in which that action is required out of you, or before the moment shows up that is going to require a certain amount of effort, out of you. This is another life hack that I do. I make my decisions and I make my boundaries ahead of time. Like I know, um, of course, once I know, where the day is leading me, or the week is leading me, I make some energetic boundaries before I enter those spaces so that I'm not caught off guard, by certain feelings that may arise, certain feelings of discomfort, certain feelings of not knowingness. um, and that is something that helps me, and I hope it helps you. Let's see. So, in the last episode of Coffee Talks, what do you want to talk about? What is there to talk about? Somebody's asking here on YouTube how to handle fears. That's it's a very very general question. How to handle fear, and I hope I don't give you a general answer, because there's different kinds of fears, right? There are the fears that are very rational, very logical. The fear of being hurt, the fear of like physically hurt. There are some very very rational fears, and there are some also irrational fears. And I think that a lot of the times, most of the time, and I hope I'm not overgeneralizing, but most of the time, the fears that we carry are fears that are irrational, are fears um, that are based on projections of the future, that are based on ideas of how, of what ifs. And quite often, these are what ifs that uh, may actually not be true. And sometimes fears have this weird way of sometimes becoming self-fulfilling prophecies, because the moment that you recognize a fear, you also create a certain vibration in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in the way that you enter a space, enter the way in which you enter the space of your fears. If your fear, for instance, is um, um, the fear of being abandoned, as somebody's mentioning here on Facebook, um, that the fear of being rejected, somebody else is saying the fear of failure. These are all tying to the same fear, actually, um, which is a fear that is so primal. It's so Paleolithic. It's so within our DNA. The fear of being abandoned, the fear of being rejected, the fear of not being wanted. And I say this because it's a fear that we've had for generations. It's a generational fear. This is not even your fear. Let me just start there. That is not your fear. that is something that your body carries and has carried with you for millennia through your parents' parents, their parents, and their parents, and on and on and on and on. It is a fear that has followed us since way back in the day. And the reason why I know this is because, look at us humans, look at the way in which we relate, look at the way in which we need this behavior, this way of communicating, this way of sharing, this way of feeling in community, this feel of, this necessity of feeling connected. And when I think about the fear of rejection, the fear of being abandoned, um, I think of when was the first time that a human being felt that? In all the versions of of humanity that we've had over the centuries, over the millennia, when did it start creeping in? When was that actually a logical, rational fear? When did it become a part of our DNA to be afraid of being abandoned? And the more that I think about it, the more that I think about the time in which we lived in caves, the time in which we lived in very small tribes, in which if you were not within the tribe, and if you were not protected, by the tribe, and you were ostracized from the group, from the community, that was almost certain death. Being outside of the tribe, being outside of the community meant literal death. You would be out there in the woods alone, and you would hear a in the bushes. That could that could that could be the sound of death back in that day, right? And so we've learned that it is through unity that we survive. We've learned that it is impossible to survive as a single individual on the planet. That's why loneliness kills. That's why loneliness, makes us just feel empty, like there's something missing, and we're always missing a connection, whether it is a, psychological one, whether it is an emotional one, whether it is a physical one. We are always craving connection, and quite often, we experience in life the lack of those connections, and very unfortunately so, sometimes many of us in our developmental years, the developmental years of growing up and being children, we experience the feeling of being abandoned by our caregivers or by the people that are figures of authority. And within this abandonment, we lose the sense of safety that we thought we had, the sense of safety that told us that we were going to be okay, that everything was, that we were comfortable enough, or that we could be comfortable enough to drop our guard and take a deep breath without having to look over our shoulders, afraid of anything, because we were taken care of and all of our needs were met. Right? And at some point in those developmental years, we got hit by not receiving that sense of comfort, by feeling rejected, by feeling abandoned. And that feeling of, not being a part of the unity of the circle that symbolizes life and survival makes our body enter into this anxious mode of, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm in danger, and we carry that fear. And sometimes, through generations, we try to get rid of that fear. We try to secure ourselves as much as possible. You've probably seen it with your parents, where they've based their life around security. You probably see it with yourself. Some of the things that you're doing right now in your life are based on security. How can I secure my life based on, the kind of education that I have access to, the kind of jobs that I have access to. How can I secure being okay, right? And how can I secure also having all my needs met, right? And sometimes, we carry that fear of being rejected, being abandoned due to experiences that life, had for us, that we enter new spaces and we make decisions in the present with the fears of the past. And sometimes those decisions that we make based on those fears end up actually reinforcing the fears, and it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because think about it in terms of a relationship. Let's use um, the idea of a romantic relationship. If you're a person that is afraid of abandonment, chances are that you're a person that is afraid of commitment, that you fear being abandoned, so you don't fully commit, you don't fully integrate, and you don't fully show up in intimacy, in vulnerability, in transparency, in honesty with your partner. And that distance, you think it keeps you safe from not being abandoned by not getting too close. And in reality, because you're not getting too close and because you're not actually forging, an intimate relationship with someone that can really see you, not only your best parts, but also your vulnerabilities, and see the whole of you, you don't allow that to happen. And so that person cannot possibly feel connected to you. And when that person doesn't feel connected to you, that relationship, tends to not be so strong, because a relationship is a bond, right? And that ends up hurting the relationship, and that ends up leading to arguments, a lack of trust, a lack of communication, and then eventually, a breakup. And your fear of being abandoned uh, shows up in the way in which you enter the relationship, in the way in which you behave in relationship, not only romantic relationships, but in relationships with others, that you end up being abandoned, quote unquote, being abandoned because of your fear of being abandoned. Does that make sense? And so sometimes, it is actually our fears which reiterate themselves in our lives and keeps us, moving in cycles, and keeps us always reinforcing themselves, right? And so one way of accessing fear is to actually feel it, but feel it in safety and feel it in comfort. One of the things that I like doing, um, that is a very practical way, um, is to feel my feelings in my body, not in my thoughts. And that's a very important distinction to make, because you and I and every single individual here on this live stream, we can come up with a solution to every single thing in thought. We can talk our way out of any problem. Our mind is that powerful and that strong in being able to come up with solutions and ways of compartmentalizing certain information so that it makes sense, right, to the systems that we have in our brain of filtering information, and where we can go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In theory, we know that that's how it works, but we will always end up in that uncomfortable spot where we have to recognize that it's always easier said than done, right? And you probably said this many times in your past. It's easier said than done, and I see it all the time in the posts of the Artidote. Especially when I share something that is complex, that is difficult, that requires work, right? People always type in easier said than done, right? And it always almost, I smile, and it also frustrates me because, yes, Everything, absolutely everything in the world will always be easier said than done. So let's just accept that, and we don't even have to mention it. Everything is always easier said than done. I don't know of a single thing that is easier done than said. Even breathing is easier said than done. You know what I mean? Even taking like 10 conscious breaths is easier said than done. And so we will always get to that point where it's easier said than done. And so one of the ways in which I do it, and I access my fears and I attempt to understand them is through bringing my body into a very unique space of comfort, and we can actually do it together. This is not, a lot of times when people talk about the inner work and doing things that are difficult, they're really not that difficult. We can even try it right now. um, let's do this. I want you to understand this in feeling more so than in thought. um, right now, wherever you are, in your room or in the house or whatever, find a place where you can actually sit, or you can actually, lay down maybe. Of course, if you are, walking or driving, or you find yourself operating heavy machinery, just continue to listen. You don't need to perform it as we speak. But if you find your way, or if you find a way of actually, entering this exercise that requires you to just, have your hands available and rested, please find a way of doing it. We're going to try it right now. I want you to I want you to right now pay attention to the muscles in your face. Sometimes we hold tension in between our eyes, and just give yourself permission to release that tension just for a bit. And pay attention also to your jaw. If it's tight, just unclench it for a little bit, move it, and release any tension that you may be having on your jaw. Now pay attention to your shoulders, your neck, and even if you're feeling tension, just acknowledge it. Acknowledge that the tension is there. And pay attention to your shoulders. Acknowledge if you're feeling any tension there. Let's bring down the scan down to your hands. Notice if you're holding any tension on your hands, and give yourself permission to just drop the tension that you're feeling in your hands. Take a deep breath and focus on any tension that you may be holding on your chest, and just allow yourself to sink a little bit deeper into your body. Take another deep breath and acknowledge any tension that you may be feeling on your belly. Sometimes we hold, tension in our bellies, which keeps us from actually taking a full breath in. So just right now, consciously become aware of all the tension, and consciously bring attention and energy into those spaces so that they relax. And if it helps, use your hand to place attention to those parts. Place your hand on your heart, and just bring attention to it, and bring a breath into it, and give it permission to relax. Now let's go down. Give your belly permission to relax. Give your waist permission to relax. Your thighs, your knees, your calves, your feet. Release any tension that you may be holding on your toes. The bottom of your feet, release any tension there. And continue to just drop any tension that you may be feeling on your body, especially on your face as well. And stay here for a moment without any tension. I want you to notice something. Right now, that you don't have any tension on your body, try to get angry. Don't make any tension. Don't add any tension to your muscles. But try to get angry. Try to think of something that makes you angry without getting tense. Breathe deeply. Are you trying it? Here's something that will blow your mind. It is physiologically impossible to get angry when your body is in a state of relaxation. When your body is not tense and your muscles are not tense and you're fully relaxed, it is physiologically impossible to experience anger and to experience fear. And the reason for that is because when your body is relaxed, your body is sending information to your limbic system, the system in the brain which is responsible for handling emotions. And in the moment of relaxation, your body is sending information to your brain, reminding you that you are safe, reminding you that there is no threat in front of you, and that there's nothing to be afraid of, and then there's nothing to either fight or flee from, that you can be completely comfortable and safe in this moment. And so remember that it is physiologically impossible to experience anger or fear when your body is in a state of relaxation. And so the reason why 10 conscious breaths, for instance, is so therapeutic is because during those breaths and during that comfort, during especially the exhale, the long exhale, it is our body sending information to our brain, letting us know that we are safe, that there is no tiger chasing us, that there is no thing that is threatening our lives, that there is nothing that we need to right now bring up energy to fight, against. And so remember that next time that you're experiencing fear. Now, here's something really important. That is a disclaimer to that. The point of conscious physical relaxation, especially when you're angry or when you're afraid, is not it. Yes, it's so that you don't experience the anger or the fear in a way in which it becomes uncontrollable. Because again, fear is one of those primal, emotions that our body carries. It's a survival mechanism. It's a superpower. It lets us know when we are in danger. Anger is also a survival mechanism that lets us know when we are in danger and we need to fight or when we need to create a boundary, right? And so what's important about consciously bringing our body to a state in which we can hold, fear or anger without fear or anger controlling, our entire organism, is not so that we never experience fear or we never experience anger. Both fear and anger are very, very important emotions. As I mentioned, fear allows us to acknowledge a threat, something that threatens our livelihood, something that threatens our survival, even. Anger as well allows us to acknowledge something that threatens our livelihood, our comfort, something that maybe betrays, our trust, breaks our boundaries. And so they're both very useful. The problem that we often have with fear and anger is that they're so powerful. They're energies that are extremely powerful to hold in our bodies. We can do incredible things with fear and we can do incredible things with anger. And sometimes they're so powerful where we almost lose control of our motor conscious functions, right? And you've seen this happen. You probably experienced it as well. Sometimes you become so afraid that you lose control, right? We've seen that in people that experience, like panic attacks or anxiety attacks. We lose control of the present moment. We see people that experience bouts of anger, how they lose control because it's such a powerful emotion. Maybe you've experienced it as well, where you lose a conscious way of actually handling a situation because your anger just clouds your vision. So the reason why it's important to consciously, bring our body into a state of calm, right, the way that we just did, is yes, so that neither fear nor anger can control us. But the point is not to just never be afraid or never be angry for the rest of our lives. That's not the point. That for both fear and anger are valuable. What's important is knowing how to use it and how to use that information, how to use the information of anger and how to use the information of fear. And so here's the hack. Whenever you find yourself in a situation, an experience that brings up a lot of anger, that brings up a lot of fear, AKA when you're triggered, find a moment to bring yourself back into that physical, conscious state of non-tension, the way that we just experienced it, where you run the entire scan of your body and you actually take the time, to access your body and how everything's feeling and consciously bring it, to a state of relaxation. Because at that moment, you now know the hack that it's impossible for you to get angry and it's impossible for you to be afraid when your body is in complete relaxation. So the reason why that's valuable is because when your body is relaxed, you still have access to the information that made you angry, and you still have access to the information that made you afraid, but now without the reactivity of the emotion. And this is so important because it is in that space of being calm and collected that you actually get to process the fear or the anger without the emotion, just with the information. And you get to say, oh, why was I afraid? Oh, okay, well, I was afraid because this thing, would happen. But if this thing happens, then I can always do that. I can always do that. And depending on whatever situation you are in, you can actually, recall what that situation is asking of you. What decisions, you could be making that are responsive and not reactive. And responsive actions tend to be much more healthy, tend to be much more, thought out, and tend to actually bring you better solutions than actions that are reactive, actions that are just so reactive with the fear or with the anger that makes you do things that your mind and your presence is not really in it, and it's not really there, right? You might end up making things worse, sometimes with that fear and with that anger. Um and so that's one thing, one way in which you can practically access fear without it being so uncontrollably scary, if that makes sense. um I hope that helps. Yes, Daisy, it's the difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is generally full of emotion. We are reactive when we feel something that threatens us, and we immediately either get angry or afraid. We either want to fight it or we want to run away, and that's reactive, right? And sometimes when we get triggered on the spot, our body gets activated and we are either super angry or super fearful, and we tend to make decisions in that moment that are reactive, that are fast, that are not thought out, that are not conscious, that are not grounded, as opposed to retraining your body to be in that state of calmness, to be in that state of relaxation. And you can try this, next time that you feel triggered, next time that you experience something that activates you, you can remind yourself like, okay, I'm triggered. Let me take 10 conscious breaths. and let me actually breathe into the parts of me, of my body, that right now are experiencing tension. Because notice that when you're triggered, there's a part of you, a part of your physicality that becomes tense. Sometimes people experience it right here in the solar plexus. Other times people experience it in the belly. Other times we experience it in the neck area. Other times people experience it in the jaw. And so there's always a physical trace, of our emotional triggers. And these are the issues in our tissues, as they say. And so next time you get triggered, notice where the issue has transferred in your tissues, and give yourself permission to breathe into it and to relax. And so next time that you get triggered, take 10 conscious breaths and just bring yourself back into relaxation, right? So that at that moment, you can actually have access to a way of thinking that is not clouded by the strong emotion that you just had. And again, the emotion is important. It's letting you know something about yourself. It's letting you know something about yourself that you either, need to act on, because sometimes when we get angry, we get angry because either our boundaries have been crossed, somebody has disrespected us, somebody has made us feel not safe, not seen, not, mm, yeah, not respected, and that makes us feel like threatened, right? It makes us feel like wait a minute, am I feeling that because did you mean what you said? Was your intention, to disrespect me? Was your intention to hurt me? Or am I simply feeling something because it's, a fear that I've had, like the fear of abandonment that just came up in the comments, or the fear of, rejection that sometimes comes up. And sometimes having access, to our triggers and allowing ourselves to actually experience our triggers in the moment is again a superpower, because most of us get triggered, and that's the moment where we sort of like whoop, we get lost, and we start just like floating, and we don't know we don't know what to do, right? And we draw mental blanks. That happened to me for years, because I have a history of social anxiety, and I was bullied in school a lot. I would play dead. I would play like I didn't want people to see me, so I would play invisible. I didn't want to be seen. And so in later on in life, in situations that actually made me overwhelmed or stressed, my mind went somewhere else. My mind would disappear. My mind would escape my body. And it was a defense mechanism that I learned, when I was in my teen years, so that I didn't have to presently be there for the bullying or for the discomfort, and that eventually, you know, um, from a defense mechanism turns into a liability, especially in situations where no, you actually need to be present. Sometimes you experience situations of conflict that it doesn't help for your mind to go somewhere else. It's like, no, we need you here. We need you to make a decision right here, right now, fully present, fully connected to your body, to your heart, to your mind, right? So that you can make the best decision for you. And it doesn't help to actually escape your body. And so yeah, I'm just taking a moment to read your comments. Yeah, anger or fear immediately makes us anxious. As somebody's mentioning here on the YouTube comments, that's true. Notice how anger or fear is energy. Our bodies are designed, by the way, to keep us alive. And so again, anger and fear are meant to keep us alive. Back in the cave days, back in the early human days, back in when we experienced when we experience things that were life-threatening, like truly life-threatening, either somebody was attacking the tribe, like another rival tribe was attacking, or we were, or we were faced with a wild animal, we actually had to, our bodies naturally had called up on that energy to fight the threat, right? Fast forward to now in this day and age where we no longer have to fight wild animals. We no longer have to fight, rival tribes on a daily. Now our troubles are more sort of, either at work or at school, in relationship with people. So much information in front of us with social media, we don't even know what to do. Our triggers are different, but nonetheless, our bodies experience it the same. Our Paleolithic bodies haven't evolved at the speed of our technology, right? And so everything around us has changed, but our bodies have still been the same. And so we still respond with that rush of energy. And when we don't know what to do with it, we translate it into anxiety, because what do you do with that rush of energy that you can't, there's nothing to attack and there's nothing to run away from? What does the body do with that rush of energy? When we don't know what to do with a rush of energy and we just sort of are forced to contain it, well, we try to resist it. And in that resistance is what, we call anxiety. And so that's why, physical activity, having a constant channel of physical activity helps regulate, um, those cycles in our bodies. For me, it's not only breath work, it's not only meditation, to calm down and to ground myself, but it's also running. It's also resistance training, like lifting weights, where I actually get to deploy, that energy so that it doesn't just stay here and has nowhere to go. Like I need sometimes something to run towards, right? Literally. And so I go out and run. And that helps me tremendously because it also allows me to build my relationship with those strong energies, and sometimes I need the energy of anger to actually go out there and run, especially on days when I don't want to. On days when it's cold outside, on days when it's raining, on days when it's windy, I it's not like I enjoy it, but I need to rely on energy that allows me to do that. And I rely on anger sometimes. And I'm like, and I bring in that anger. And with that anger, I have enough to just go and deploy it and release it. Right? Because it's not like I'm a monk. It's not like I don't experience anger or I don't experience fear. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I think social media tends to create, especially for people like me that operate in the wellness, space and mindfulness space. I don't want you to think that I'm calm and collected and peaceful and joyous and happy at all times. That's impossible. That would be inhumane of me, and I'm very much human. And so whenever I experience fear, whenever I experience anger, I've learned ways of actually transmuting that, of actually channeling the fear, the anger, the grief, the feelings that we usually avoid in life, to actually turn them into something productive, to actually turn them into information that is conductive to my growth, conductive to my, I don't even want to say productivity, because it's not everything is about productivity. Not everything is about being productive. Sometimes the most important thing that you can do one day is not being productive, but being present. And I know that we live in a time and an age in which we have equated productivity with self-worth, and it's so unfortunate that that's the case, that we have to feel productive in order to feel worthy, right? In order to feel like we deserve love or affection or attention. And that's just like a recipe for burnout. and not healthy at all and not sustainable. And so sometimes, what really helps is to actually be present for your experience, to feel what you're feeling in presence, and embodying, what you're feeling, especially the feelings that you don't want to feel. But there's got to be a healthy way of feeling them, because there's so many unhealthy ways of dealing with emotions. And we see it all the time. We see people engage in risky behavior. We see people engage in unhealthy behavior. We see people turn to addiction, not knowing, of course, that they're going to become addicted, but then eventually it turns into like a bigger problem. We look for substances to sort of distract ourselves with from our feelings. We turn to alcohol, we turn to drugs, and before we know it, we're addicted to this addictive, substances. And sometimes we're addicted to certain relationships that are not healthy for us, that we got addicted to because they distracted us from, the feelings that we didn't want to feel, the work that we needed to do on ourselves. And then we just keep on going on cycles of addiction. And sometimes those addictions are, yes, substances. Sometimes those addictions are people and certain relationship dynamics. But that's, of course, a whole different topic. Um, I love seeing, how active the chat is and how you are helping each other make sense of the conversation that is happening. I really appreciate this. I really appreciate, the space and community that we get to build through spaces like this. And listen, and speaking of which, all of this that I'm sharing, by the way, is something that I've put together in a program. I've put together in a program that lasts 4 weeks, and you probably heard me talk about it in the past. My program is called the Four Fellowships, and right now we just finished, um, 2 weekends ago, the fourth cycle of the fourth fellowships. This is the fourth time that I've run the program, and essentially it's 4 weeks, and each week we do creative challenges that puts us in a position to actually address these things that we're talking about. Sometimes people come into the four fellowships, experiencing a breakup. I've had people that were healing from a breakup that were coming into the four fellowships to find ways of actually re-nurturing themselves back to life, and back to a healthy, embodied, presence. Because heartbreaks, whew, do they create an imbalance in the way in which we feel about ourselves and the way in which we feel about the world, right? And there's so much processing that has to go in. And so I've had people that are healing from heartbreak. I had people that are actually coming into the four fellowships in relationship. This last cycle of the four fellowships had the most couples that I've ever held. And these were people that were working, on their relationships, on their dynamics, on finding ways of actually being, the best partners for each other, and finding ways of opening up the communication, opening up the room and the space to be and to grow together. And I also had people that were struggling, with their partners, that through some of the creative challenges in the four fellowships, they allowed themselves to actually trust in themselves a little bit more, and feel more connected, to their heart, and simultaneously allow their partners to see them more and connect to them more. I had a couple that was long distance for a while, and through the exercises and the challenges in the four fellowships, they were able to open up more to themselves and to talk more openly about their feelings, not only towards each other, but about their feelings towards themselves. Because you know, sometimes we're very comfortable in public talking to strangers, being our public selves. Other times we're not so much there, but we're comfortable in our private sphere of life, our family, our relationships, right? The people that we love, the people that we hold close to us, our inner circle. And other times, we actually struggle with the other area and the other domain of a human individual, which is our secret domain, that part of ourselves that we may not be able to reveal even to our closest ones. That part of ourselves that knows our secrets, knows our fears, knows our vulnerabilities. Sometimes we even don't want to address that. Sometimes we even don't want to talk to that part of ourselves because we don't know, how to handle that part of ourselves. And so that's why, I created this program in which I teach exercises like some of the ones that you just experienced today for people to actually find ways to understand what they're feeling a little bit more and to feel what they're feeling in a healthy way, right? So that they may be able to talk about it more, not only with the people that are a part of the four fellowships, but especially with the people in the real world, in the real community, in their family, in their relationships, and in order to create a positive change in the life of these individuals. And this particular couple that came together that was long distance, I just received a message from them some weeks ago about how they were getting married, and they actually had met finally after being in long distance for years to have their wedding and to be together. And it was the groom that actually got in touch with me, and he's like, "Thank you, thank you so much for not only allowing me to be more open with my partner and to recognize also what my fears were coming into this relationship, but also for allowing her to be more open about her feelings to herself first and then to me. And it has only reinforced our bonds. And so now we're getting married next week, and I was like, what? I couldn't believe it, but at the same time I could. um, Disclaimer: if you're ever thinking about joining the four fellowships, and especially if you're working in a relationship with someone, this may not mean that it will heal everything in your relationship, but it will at least reveal some things that may be so important for you and for your relationship and for your partner that you may need to work on. And not every relationship, of course, has a happy ending. This one had one. Sometimes what's very difficult about being in a relationship with someone is the realization that we actually, despite so much trying, so much trial and error, we may not be the right match, for each other. And so sometimes that's even the most difficult conclusion to get to, and that may also be, a possibility with these sort of experiences. But nonetheless, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I will soon be opening up the fifth cycle of the four fellowships, and it's going to happen this summer. This is for the summer cycle, and it's going to happen in August. And if you like to receive updates and news about the summer cycle and where you can sign up for it, there is a link in the description of this video. You can find it there, and I'll be sending an update. If not today, then definitely by tomorrow, because the early birds of the four fellowships get to bring a person in for free. So basically, it's two for the price of one, and you get to bring a friend along. And so I'm going to reveal that early bird window by tomorrow. And if you'd like to be a part of it, check out the link in the description. It's going to be there. But essentially, the four fellowships, just to put it very directly, is 4 weeks, creative challenges, archetypal work. We work with the human archetypes. We work with the warrior. We bring online your warrior self, that part of yourself that actually is more stronger than sometimes you give it credit for. We all have that part, that sometimes we forget how strong we really are. Sometimes we're afraid, actually, not of our shadow, but actually of our light, of how much power and strength we have to change our life around. And one of the core pillars of the four fellowships is the warrior fellowship, which brings that part of yourself, online. There's also the fellowship of the children. And this particular fellowship works with your inner child. A lot of us carry an inner child that is wounded, an inner child that maybe didn't receive the love that he or she needed, an inner child that was so pure, just how all of us are when we come into the world. And due to circumstances or due to just mishandling, we experience pain, we experience abandonment, we experience rejection, and we grow up to become adults that are really children, hurt children that didn't have their needs met. And as we had in this conversation earlier, sometimes we grow up with that fear of abandonment that doesn't even belong to us anymore, right? That is something that we picked up in childhood that is going to continue to follow us until we actually address it and until we actually heal it and until we actually, go back and speak to our inner child and let our inner child know, that we're now adults and now we can take care of our inner child. And that doesn't mean, that because we're now adults, we don't get to actually still be our inner children. On the contrary, there's this exercise in the four fellowships in which I ask people to do something that they don't like doing, like a chore, um, as if it was their inner child, as if it was their that part of themselves that wants to be playful, that wants to be joyful, that wants to be full of energy and awe, and to experience life as a child within safe boundaries, of course. So we get to experience that as well. Um, and it's so important, to remember what the world looked like when we were children. A lot of times we forget. A lot of times we forget how magical this thing really is. A lot of times we forget how full of possibility every moment really is. We get caught up with so much programming and conditioning and expectations and ways of being that we sometimes don't even allow ourselves to actually be different, feel different, and explore the world. And we think that we may already know it all, or at least we sometimes feel that way, right? And experiencing the world through the eyes of your inner child is giving yourself that permission to actually be okay with not knowing, and within that not knowing, to allow yourself to explore once again and to rediscover parts of yourself that maybe you had no idea that you had, or that maybe you have forgotten. And so there's a part, in the four fellowships for that. We also get to explore our magician. That's the other archetype. The magician is that part of ourselves that works with our intuition, that works with our sense of transformation, that part of ourselves that is so creative, the part of ourselves that can turn an experience into a ritual, the part of ourselves that can turn um, cooking into a party, the part of ourselves that turns a conversation into magic, the part of ourselves that can transform our lives. And you've experienced that part. You've made decisions in your life that have been transformative, right? Don't forget that you have. Don't forget that you have been in those spaces before. You could actually create a space like that right now, today in your life. You can make a decision today that could be transformative, a decision that looks different than the decisions that you would be making on any other Sunday. And we're always one decision away from transforming our lives. We're always one decision away from transforming the way in which we relate to the world and experience the world. And so, that archetypal energy is the energy of that inner magician, that we all have. And the other archetype that we work with inside the four fellowships is the archetype of the king or queen, that part of yourself that knows what belongs to you and what doesn't, that part of yourself that respects who you are and who you're not. And a lot of times we actually don't even know where our boundaries begin and where our boundaries end. And we end up, betraying ourselves and doing things that we actually don't want to do. We become people pleasers, and we want to say yes to everything because we don't want to upset anybody. And sometimes it's necessary to actually say, no, I don't want that. Or no, I don't feel comfortable with that. Or, it's all right. I won't partake in that. And a lot of us have a problem with the word no. And the word no is such a powerful spell and such a powerful way of creating boundaries that remind you of who you actually are and who you're not, right? And so in the four fellowships, we work with um, that energy of creating boundaries, the energy of king, the energy of queen, the energy of knowing who you are and knowing who you're not, and reminding yourself of who you are and who you're not. And so, this takes place over a private Facebook group that I created so that we can have these conversations. And we always have every weekend live conversations to just go over not only the quests and the challenges that we're facing, but to also answer any questions and to grow together. So that's coming up in the summer, the fifth iteration of the four fellowships, and this is going to be the summer cycle. And if you want more information on that, just subscribe to the waiting list. It is up now. You can find the link in the description, and I'll be sending an email tomorrow, most likely, giving you an update on when you can sign up, so that we get ready for what is a life-changing experience. Um, and um, and yeah, the four fellowships. Mm, Shivanji, yes. So the way that the four fellowships works is that once you sign up, and once the date opens up for it, I send you all the information that you need. There are some questions that I have you answer just so that I know where you're coming from, and I know what you want to get out of the experience, and that way I can guide you best through the next 4 weeks. And once you have that, I also send you the link to the private Facebook group that is only for the four fellowships and for the people that are a part of that cycle, right? And once you have that Facebook link, I accept everybody to come in, and once we begin, we experience the next 4 weeks together in real time. This is not one of those courses where you get to do it on your own with pre-recorded content. Yes, there is pre-recorded content, videos that I've created already in the past that I share with you, and I'm also there in the comments. I'm also there every weekend, live interacting with you and helping you, and allowing you to have access, to that part of yourself that right now is in that point of having that necessity for growth, having that necessity to break through challenges that you may be facing, and challenges that you're at a point in your life where you're like, I need to change. I need to do something differently. And the four fellowships provides you with tools so that you actually, in practicality, do things differently in your life. This is not a course where it's just theory and concepts, but we actually get to do things in real time, offline, in our real lives. And we have this as an online space where to actually trade notes, where to ask questions, where to share as well our experiences, and where we get to grow together over a period of 4 weeks. And the next cycle begins in August. And but the early bird registration is going to begin already next week, right? And early birds get to bring a friend for free into the four fellowships, and so that's why it's convenient to get updates and know when these windows open up, so that you have an opportunity to experience the most and to get the most out of the course. What else? I'm reading right now your messages. Yeah, and so just to begin wrapping things up, um, I will finish up this episode of Coffee Talks in the next 10 minutes. But just to wrap things up, one of the reasons why this is the last episode of Coffee Talks is simply because for the next for the next couple of months, there's so much work ahead of me. I have this epic 4 fellowships cycle that is coming up, and that often requires a lot of work, to make sure that I'm there for the people that join the 4 fellowships, and to make sure that I show up 100% at my capacity to be able to provide them, with a clear and empowered channel and filter, so that my information actually gets through. We've all been in courses and with teachers that may be really smart, in their own field, but may actually be really bad teachers. They don't know how to transfer that information, so it's pointless. And so for me, it's really important that this becomes a course, that an online course where you actually do get to learn, and I do get to share, all of these tools that unfortunately nobody teaches, us in school. We don't get taught how to feel our feelings. We don't get taught how to set boundaries. We don't get taught what to do with our triggers. We don't get taught, how to work with relationships and the different dynamics, how to show up um, with trust and confidence in ourselves, and how to speak to the parts of ourselves that sometimes are quite negative and nasty. What do we do with a negative self-talk? What do we do with overthinking? How do we operate as human beings in the 21st century with so much information around us? I struggled so much to find spaces like that for my community, and I figured, if since that didn't exist, I was going to create it. And so now that I created the 4 fellowships, it has my full commitment. And whenever I open up a cycle, it becomes one of my priorities, the people inside the 4 fellowships. And so that's why right now I need to focus on that, because that's coming this summer. And also, I'm at the brink of shifting countries, leaving Germany, and I'm going to my homeland. I'm moving to Mexico. I'm going to the southeast coast of Mexico, where I will settle for the next couple of years, and where I will continue to build the antidote and continue to work, as a coach, as a heart powered coach, and continue to build the 4 fellowships, and just continue on my purpose. And as you can imagine, that requires a lot of attention and a lot of energy, and so that's why I won't be able to commit 100% and to really fully be here, every Sunday. And so that's why I decided that since I wasn't going to be able to fully be present and to fully be committed, then I'd rather sort of take a pause, take a break, so that I can show up at 100% in the other commitments that I already have for myself. And, once I come back, um, I'll be able to come back at 100%, and hopefully it will be, by the fall of 2021, and maybe it would be a different iteration of Coffee Talks. Maybe it's not going to be in this same experience. Maybe it might be a podcast. Maybe it might be something else, wink wink. And so I'm working on things behind the scenes that are going to make this experience of, sharing a moment together and in real time, and interacting, with you and growing together, um, and turning it into actually something very special. So, let's see. Thank you to everybody that is wishing me well on my journey. I will try actually to keep you updated on the journey. Um, I will try to keep you updated through my personal Instagram page. This is going to be, without exaggeration, one of the most life-changing transitions in my life. Sometimes in life, you go through life-changing moments without realizing that they're life-changing moments. And often, unfortunately, those life-changing moments are accidents, or are unexpected, whether it's like really painful, life-changing moments like tragic events, or very much um, expected, beautiful, life changing events like graduations, weddings, all of these ceremonies that create a before and an after in your life. And quite often, or rarely, do we actually realize when we are in the midst of a life changing moment, you know? And so, a decision that I've made recently to move to Mexico is a decision that came from deep within my heart. Um, and I know that it's going to be life changing, and I'm in the middle of, making it something that that is full of meaning and that is full of purpose. And so, since I'm in the middle of it, I want to record it. I want to capture the experience of actually um, in, hold on, I'm typing. The experience of being in transition, following your dreams. Um, because this move to Mexico is not only deeply personal, but also professional. Um, One of the reasons for me moving there is because I know how nurturing is going to be to my mental health, to my emotional health, to my how closer I will be to family, how closer I will be to things that inspire me, how closer I will be to everything that makes me me. And the place where I'm going through it, that I'm going to settle in, is so nurturing, to my soul. And when I feel nurtured, I'm so creative and I'm so productive and I feel so energized and so full of love and so full of purpose. And I know that the kind of heart that I have and the kind of purpose that I have, that I need to take care of that. That I need to put myself in a place wherever it is in the world that allows for that love to come through uninterrupted, unfiltered, and to create, new possibilities. Because if I've been able to create so much, with that love up until now, through the art, through the four fellowships, through my public speaking, through writing, through my advocacy for mental health, I get shivers thinking what it would be like to create more in a place where I feel fully grounded and nurtured at the soul level. And that's what I'm looking for. I want to see what Jova 2.0 looks like. And now that I deeply believe in my purpose, now that I deeply know what my purpose is, which is to heal and to heal. And what I mean by that is that for me, my purpose is to heal myself in order so that I may know how to heal others and how to help and support others in their healing. Now that I know that, I just need to position myself and put myself in a place that allows for that, love, which is really the energy that is driving this whole thing. Um, and now I know where to find it. And now I know where I feel, guided to install myself for the next coming years. So Jova 2.0 awaits, and I need to do everything in my present moment to respect my purpose and to take care, of this um, purpose that I carry. So you can follow the journey on Instagram. You can follow it on my personal account. It is at instagram.com/Jova Ferreira. I'm actually posting it right here on the screen. You can see it right here on the screen. You can follow me on my personal Instagram to follow that journey. I will soon begin posting, as soon as I leave Germany. I'm leaving in the next 2 weeks. And I'm going to make a layover first to see some family in the US before traveling down to Mexico. But you're more than welcome to come on the journey, and you're more than welcome to follow through. And I will try to be active as I can on the Artidote, because not only do I love what I've built with the Artidote so far, but I also know how much it means to people, and how much of a grounding space and breathing space and space to actually feel um, alive, sometimes for a bit. The antidote is to people, and so I will try to continue to keep it, as active as I can. But as I mentioned, there's a lot of work ahead, and yeah, I fortunately for you, unfortunately for me, I already know my boundaries. I already know my limits, and I already know when I am overworking myself. And even though I love the work that I do, let's not forget that we still have physical bodies. Let's not forget that we have physical limits, that we have energetic limits, and that we need to know, how to nurture that energy, and how to nurture our body, how to take care of our mind, how to take care of our heart, how to take care of our spirit. And so that much I know that I will be doing for the next few months, until you will already see me in Mexico, and I'll get to show you around. I'll get to show you what my beautiful Mexico looks like from my eyes. And yeah, in the meantime, best wishes to all of you. Thank you for joining this experience. Thank you for being here with me, with us, in this final episode of Coffee Talks. Thank you for adding your voice to the chat box. Thank you for being such a wonderful community. Thank you for all the love. Sonali, I see you. Danny, I see you. Sneha, I see you. Maria, Lauren, Yesenia, Kitam. Thank you, everybody that is here. We are at the brink of a new beginning. That's the thing about cycles. One closes and another one opens, and I'm at a point in my life where I surrender. I surrender to letting go of everything that needs to go, and I welcome everything, that is in front of me, and I'm just open to receive everything that is in front of me, and allowing everything that I need to let go of to move through me, and to actually let go of it. Because let's face it, for all of us, the next phase of our lives, in order to properly, fluidly, lightly, and wholeheartedly make it to the next phase of our lives, everything that we've done so far, everything that has taken us to this point in our lives, will not necessarily be the things that will take us to the next phase. Some of the things that we picked up along the way, some of the habits, some of the tools, some of the personalities, some of the certain ways of being got us here. Those ways of being may not actually take us to where we want to go, to where we need to go, to the next phase. And so it is such a liberating feeling to surrender to the things that need to go, and to also, in that surrendering, accepting and receiving everything that is coming. And it's something that I deeply feel right now in my body and in my spirit, that I'm surrendering just to everything that is coming. And so, I can't wait. The best that I could do is just be present to experience it all. And that's also the best thing that you can do right now. If you're going through a transition in your life, if you're going through a moment of change, allow yourself to surrender. Allow yourself to let go. Allow yourself to not hold on to things so tightly. Allow yourself to recognize that you can either hold on to things like this with a tight fist, right, and being afraid of not letting go, or you can hold on to things like this with an open fist, knowing that what is yours will never leave you. And so that's the final thought that I had for you today. And for now, I will say goodbye, and I will see you on the next one. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your Sunday. Have a very present summer as well. And I'll see you on the Arthodote, and hopefully I'll see you at the 4 fellowships so that we get to work together and grow together as well. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.